Canto 13. Nessos was not yet arrived there beyond, when we picked our way into a coppice wherein no trace of path was evident, nor green foliage but darkly coloured, nor smooth branches but knotted and gnarled, nor fruits were there but stalks of poison. Those savage beasts that abhor the seeded fields betwixt Cecina and Corneto dwell not in such crabbed thickets nor so dense. Therein the squalid harpies make their nests, who drove the Trojans from the Strophides with rueful portents of future evils. They have huge wings and human necks and faces, taloned feet and great feathered bellies. They sound atop the trees their weird laments. And the good master, ere thou enter farther, know that thou art at the second ring, he commenced to say, and shalt so remain till thou art come to the horrible sands. Observe well then, and thus shalt see things that baffle credence of my word. I heard laments borne from every quarter, and no person did I see who made them, so that I halted in great confusion. I think that he thought that I was thinking that such voices arose among those trunks from people who to us remained hidden. So the master said, If thou breakst a leaf stem from one of these plants, thy thoughts will all be proven stumps. Then I extended my hand a little, and plucked a small twig from a great thorn bush, and its stub cried out, Why dost thou rend me? As it was then made dark with blood, it cried out again, Why maim'st me? Hast thou no spirit of mercy? We were men, now made dry spiny bushes. Thy hand had surely been more reverent had we been the souls of venomous snakes. As from a green stick that's afire at one end, and from the other drips and fizzles in bursts of escaping gas, thus from the broken splinter poured words and blood as one, whence I let the sprig fall and stood there like a man in fear. Had he been able, ill-treated soul, my sage replied, to believe before what he hath seen only in my verse, he would not to thee have taken hand. But the thing beyond belief made me urge him to what weighs on me alike. But tell him who thou wast, that in manner of some correction he restore thy fame in the world above, where he may return. And the stub, With sweet speech thou so lurest me, I cannot keep silent, and be ye not taxed if I indulge me a little to discourse. I was he who guarded both the keys to Frederick's heart, and he who turned them, locking and unlocking so smoothly, I kept from his trust almost every man. I brought faith to the glorious office, such that I lost my senses and life's blood. The lady of the night who ne'er turned her whorish eyes from Caesar's palace, common perdition and vice of courts, inflamed their every spirit against me, and those inflamed so inflamed Augustus they altered glad honours to dark despair. My spirit in a disdainful temper, thinking by my death to flee disdain, unjustly set me against myself, though just. By the new roots of this frame of wood, I swear to thee I never broke faith with my lord so worthy of honour. And if one of ye return to the world, rectify my memory, which still lies prone, buttoned by the blow that envy dealt. He paused briefly, and, while he is silent, the poet said to me, Lose not the time, but speak so it please thee, and more inquire. Wherefore I to him, And ask thou of him what will satisfy me, as thou believest, for I cannot. Pity so binds my heart. Whence he resumed, Let one freely do for thee what thy words entreat, mewed up soul. May it please thee still to tell us how the spirit is lodged in these knots, and say, if thou canst, if any is e'er from these limbs released. Thereat the stub blew hard, and then that breath was transformed to these words, Brief reply shall be given you. When the madded soul departs the body as instrument of its own uprooting, Minos assigns it to the seventh chasm. Into the wood without choice of part it falls where fortune propels it. There it germinates like a grain of spelt. It comes forth as a shoot and sylvan plant. The harpies grazing then upon its leaves give suffering, and to suffering a window. Like the others we shall come for our remains, but not that any be of them repossessed, for justice denies what we have cast away. Here we shall hold them back, and our bodies will in the woe-begotten wood be hung, each on the thorn bush of its baleful shade. We remained attentive still to the stub, thinking it wished to speak to us again, when we were taken short by a clamour, as one who perceives the coming of the hunted pig toward his post, who hears the dogs and rustling shrubs. And behold, from the left side, two, naked and clawed, fleeing so wildly, they sundered every tangle of the wood. The one in front, "Now hasten, hasten, death!" and the other, who appeared to sorely lag, shouted, "Olano, thy legs were not thus inspired in the joust at the topo!" And because breath belike had failed him, he intertwined himself with a bush. Behind them the wood was teeming with black bitches, ruttish and fleet, like greyhounds set free of the leash. In him who had flattened himself they set their teeth and dismembered him shred by shred, and carried away those sorrowful limbs. Now my guide grasped in his my hand, and led me to the bush which wept in vain through its bleeding gashes. "O Iacomo," it said, "O Santo Andrea, what hath availed thee to make of me defence? What guilt have I in thine iniquitous life?" As the master stood firm above, he said, "Who wast thou, who through so many wounds wheezest with blood thy painful words?" And he to us, "O souls who are come to see the dishonouring laceration that hath from me dissevered my foliage, gather it round the wretched shrub. I was of the city which her first patron exchanged for the Baptist. Wherefore he with his art will ever be her bane, and were it not that of him some vestige remains on the bridge that spans the Arno, those citizens who then on the ashes left by Attila refounded her, and performed their labours all in vain. Of my house beams I made my hanging tree." Canto 14. Because veneration for my birthplace compelled me, I gathered the strewn foliage and restored it to the shrub now grown hoarse. Soon we came to the extreme where the second circle is divided from the third, and where the horrible art of justice is displayed. To reveal in full the new-found things, I say that we came forth upon a plain which ousts from its bed every plant. The pain-stricken wood wreathes it round as the woeful ditch round the wood. There we checked our steps at its edge. The ground was a dry and dense bed of sand, made in no other fashion than that which by Cato's foot once was trod. O vengeance of God, how thou shouldst be feared by every one who reads of what was revealed to my eyes! I saw many bands of naked souls, wailing all in direst misery, and ruled, it seemed, by differing laws. Some people lay supine on the ground, some were seated curled up in a ball, and others were in ceaseless motion. More plenteous were those who ran about, and fewer those who lay in torment, but whose tongues were more loosed in pain. Over all the sand, lazily falling, were raining swollen flakes of fire like windless snow in the Apennines, as Alexander in those torrid parts of India saw above his host potent flames falling upon the earth, so that he undertook to stamp the ground with his cohorts, because the fervid fire was easier snuffed when it was single. Thus descended the eternal heat, so that the sand ignited like tinder beneath a flint, doubling the pain. The rough dance of the hapless hands knew no repose, now here, now there, plucking fresh coals from their bodies. I began, "Master, thou who bringst to rule all things save the hard demons who rushed forth against us at the yard before the gate, who is this great man who seems unswayed by the burning and lies spiteful and scowling, whom it appears the rain doth not ripen?" And he himself, who soon became aware that I was asking my leader of him, cried, "What I was living, that I am dead, though Jove exhaust his smith, from whom enraged he took the forked lightning that struck me on the final day, or exhaust the others clan by clan in Mongibello at the Black Forge, crying, 'Good Vulcan, help us, as he did in the fray at Phlegra, and fulminate me. For all his strength he cannot thus have mirthful revenge.' Thereon my leader spake so forcefully I had never before heard him so strong. 'O Kappa nurse, in that thine arrogance is not allayed, thou art more punished. No torment other than thy rage could be to thy fury adequate pain.' Then he turned to me with softer favour, saying, he was one of the 7 kings who besieged Thebes, and held, and it seems holds God in despite, and scarce seems to praise him. But as I said to him, his enmities are suitable ornaments for his breast. But follow behind, and still have a care thou set not thy feet on the scorching sand, but keep them ever close within the bosque." In silence we arrived where a little rivulet debouches from the forest, whose redness horrifies me even now. As from Bulicame a creek divides, shared by the women who sort and wash the hemp, so did that one drop down to the sand. Stones had constructed its stream bed, and both its sloping sides and bordering banks, by which I conceived that there was the passage. Of all else that I have shown thee since we entered by that portal whose threshold is denied to none, nothing hath been by thy sight perceived so worthy of note as the present stream which extinguishes above it every flame. These words were those of my leader, so I prayed him concede me the fare for which he had conceded me desire. In mid-sea there lies a wasted land, he said then, which bears the name of Crete, under whose king the world once lived pure. A mountain is there which is called Ida, once made pleasing by water and green fronds, now it is barren like an aged thing. Rhea chose it as the trusted cradle of one dear son, and to best conceal him when he cried caused a clatter to be heard. In that mount a great old man upright stands, who holdeth his back turned to Damietta, and looks on Rome as on his looking-glass. His head is of fine gold compounded, and his arms and chest are pure silver. Then he is copper down to the loins. From thence below he's all choicest iron, save that his right foot is made of clay, and more thereon than on the other stands erect. Every part besides the gold is fractured by a fissure, from whence trickle tears that when collected excavate this cavern. Stone to stone their stream falls to this hollow. They form Acheron, Styx, and Phlegethon, then cascade below through this narrow duct, till there where further descent is stayed they form Cocytos. And that pool his nature thou shalt see, thus it goeth here untold. And I to him, If this brook before us is thus derived from our world, wherefore doth it appear to us but at this margin? And he to me, Thou know'st the sight is round, and for all that thou art come a long way ever left, dropping down to the bottom, thou art not yet gone round all the circle. So if aught here is novel to our eyes, thy features need not yield admiration. And I again, Master, where are Phlegethon and Lethe? For of one thou keepest silent, and sayest the other is made of this rain. In all thy questions sure thou pleasest me, he answered, but the red waters boiling should have unravelled that which thou hast posed. Lethe thou shalt see, but beyond this pit, there where the souls go to wash themselves when penitent guilt is absolved. Then he said, Now is the time to shift our course from the bosque. Come behind me. The unburnt borders furnish the way, and above them every flame is spent. Canto 15. One of the rocky borders bears us away, and the vapour of the runnel domes above, screening water and embankments from the fire. As between Wissant and Bruges the Flemings, fearing the surf that rushes against them, erect the dike that holds the sea at bay, and as along the Brenta the Paduans to defend their cities and their castles before Mount Carenzana feels the heat, these were made in like configuration, though the master, whoever he was, made them nor so high nor so thick. Now we were so distant from the wood that even had I again turned behind, I could not have seen where it was, when we chanced on a crowd of souls coming along the bank, and each one stared at us, as wontedly at twilight one stares at another under the new moon, and so they wrinkled their brows at us like an old tailor at the needle's eye. Thus scrutinized by such a family, I was recognized by one who tugged at my hem and cried, What wonder's this? And I, when to me he stretched his arm, fixed my sight upon his charred semblance, so that the scorched visage not deter my intellect from his recognition. And reaching my hand down toward his face, I answered, Are you here, Ser Brunetto? And he, O dear my son, be not displeased. Ser Brunetto Latino will turn back with thee awhile, and let the chase proceed. I said to him, With all my strength I pray you, and if you desire me to sit with you I shall so, and please my companion. O son, he said, who of this herd stops still, then lies 100 years without brushing when the heat strikes? But go thou on, I'll follow at thy skirts, and then I shall rejoin my company who go bewailing their eternal pangs. I dared not, to walk beside him, descend from the track, but held my head bowed as a man who goes in reverence. He began, What fortune or destiny leads thee down here before the final day? And who is he who showeth thee the road? There above in the tranquil life I went astray in a valley, I replied to him, ere yet my years were come to ripeness. Even yester morning I cringed away. He appeared to me as I was turning back, and he guides me home along this path. And he to me, If thou follow'st thy star, thou canst not go wide of the glorious port, if well I observed in the fair life. And had not I died before my time, seeing how upon thee heaven smiled, I had given comfort to thy work. But that malicious ingrate populace who anciently came down from Fiesole and still nurture their flinty mountain ways will become for thy good works thine enemy, and justly so, for it ill suits among sharp sorbs the gentle fig his fruits to bear. Long-lived repute in the world called them blind. People miserly, envious, and haughty, seek to purge thyself of their customs. Thy fortune reserves thee such honour that for thee both parties will hunger, but the grass will be far from the buck. May the Fiesolan beasts be devourers of themselves, and may they not touch the plant, if from their dung-heap any still burgeons, wherein may the holy seed be revived of those Romans who there remained when it was made the nest of such malevolence. If my desires were fully satisfied, I replied to him, you would not yet be posted in exile from human nature. For in my mind is fixed, and now afflicts me, the gentle and dear fatherly image of you, when in the world now and then you taught me how man becomes eternal. And how grateful I am therefore may my tongue give utterance so long as I live. I record what you relate of my days to come, and store it with another text, to be construed by a lady who, if I reach her, will know how. I wish but this be to you revealed, so that my conscience not berate me. I am prepared for fortune what she will. Such prophecy is not new to my ears. Therefore let fortune turn her wheel as 'her please, and the peasant his scythe. Now my master turned behind, raising his right cheek, and heedful look to me, then said, who knows her understands. None the less for that do I go on talking with Ser Brunetto, and ask him who are his highest placed and best known fellows. And he to me, to know of some is well, of others silence will be seemlier, for the time would be brief for so much noise. No, in fine, they were all scholars and great men of letters and widely famed, defiled in the world by the same sin. Priscian moves among that impure rabble, and Francesco da Corso. There mightst thou also, if thou fancied such scum, see him who was removed by the servant of servants from the Arno to the Bacchiglione, where he left his ill-distended nerves. I would say more, but journey and discourse cannot be longer, for now I discern fresh smoke there bursting forth from out the sand. People are coming whom I must avoid. Be thou prompted to my tresor, wherein I still live, and I ask for nothing more. Then he turned back, and he appeared as those who for the green flag run round Verona over the fields. And of these he appeared not one who loses, but him who prevails.